Hi, welcome. Karis to you. It is 11 a.m. on Tuesday, the 16th of June, 2026. And again, I'm by myself. I have a subject that I just had come onto my mind a few minutes ago. So I might say something useful. If so, are you ready to take notes? I had calling on my mind. Now, the reason I had calling on my mind is I know what I'm called to. And even though I know what I'm called to, lately have been taken away from that call by God to achieve another godly task outside of my call. And the issue is, I have an urge within me, which seems like the kind of urge that comes from the Holy Spirit. And that urge within me is a variation to the call. Am I called to multiple things? Well, my call originally is for multiple things anyway. I am called to act in all aspects of fivefold ministry, for one, to act like a pastor, like a prophet, like a teacher, like an evangelist, like an apostle at different times in different ways. I'm called to help people find God, like an evangelist. I'm called to teach them like a teacher, like I do with these videos, etc. I'm called to lead them to their calling, like a pastor or a prophet may do. A prophet might express what their calling is prophetically. A prophet will also speak in an inspired way, even if it's not a prophecy. A pastor cares for the flock like a shepherd cares for sheep. So a pastor will help guide them through the process, will help them become what they're called to be in God. And I see a pastor's role more as direct action with the church, helping them grow in God and find their call, reach their call, and help them launch their call, more than I see them preaching. When I see a pastor preaching, I see them as acting in the role of a teacher generally, especially if the way they do it is by teaching rather than just exhortation or uh, expressing godly things. If they're actually getting into biblical verses and maybe getting into the Greek and explaining it, well, that's very much what a teacher does. And I also have an apostolic part about me. I am commissioned to achieve what I've just mentioned to you and to help people, A, discover God, B, discover their relationship with God and build that relationship, C, find their call, D, train in that call, E, launch that call, and to also help them find a body of like-minded believers and surround them with a body of like-minded believers and create an organization to do so, which is a relatively apostolic aspect as well, to have a specific calling that encompasses multiple aspects and has many people assisting to achieve whatever that assignment is. Consider them an assigned leader, especially when it comes to new projects in God. So I act that way as well. Now, that's a pretty massive thing for one. I'm not saying, oh, look, I'm wonderful or anything like that. I'm not saying that, oh, that makes me someone important. Not at all. It just means that it's something that God has put on my heart and shown me that it just seems nobody is doing this. It's like realizing that there are basically no evangelists. And because there are basically no evangelists, you have on your heart a call to raise up people as evangelists. It's like that. It's a full-time thing. It can take me a lot of time. And I can easily work on it 8 a.m. to 8, 9, 10 p.m., 12, 13, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, easily. Yet, lately, I've had another project which is not in that calling, but God put it in my heart, and God has done so many things to show that it's what He wanted me to do by bringing the right jigsaw piece at the right time and making it a wonderful project that I see will do wonderful things for God. So I believe that God definitely did want me to step out of my call for a while and focus on that. Now, here's my issue on calling. Right now, having completed that to 99% complete, it's just requiring launch, which I can probably do today or the like, and or get that underway anyway. And I can step away from it and go back to my regular call. However, I also am nudged towards doing other very similar things to that. God's putting things in my heart that tie to that. And I'm wondering if it firstly is actually rather than God, but me in my heart saying, hey, look, this is also valid and viable considering the project that God just had you on. It could be me, because that would be keeping me from my call even longer. On the other hand, could I have another aspect to my call? Not only to create the organization where people can discover God, learn more about God, train in God, discover their call, train in their call, launch their call, etc. Not only create that organization, but also work on this next project, which is not in that area. And if I do that, there's probably two, three, I don't know how many, or other similar things. Each of these things could take quite a few months. The one that I've been working on full time and overtime, really. And it's taken 3, 4 months. So I would expect on average each would take 3 or 4 months. I don't know where to head in my calling. Yes, I seem to be talking about me. However, this will relate to many people, whether they're doing what they are called to do or not. What's in your heart to do? Is God blessing that? And are there other things that you could be doing that God blesses? This project has been mightily blessed. Everything required just fell into place. And even things that were unseen that I wouldn't have known as requirements just came at the perfect time. And it was a matter of, wow, I didn't even know this was missing. But as I was working on one aspect, something that came about was exactly regarding that one aspect at that very time that I was working on it. And it made me look at that aspect in a different way, which was certainly godly. So, my dilemma is when you're walking in your call and something distracts you from that call but is godly, do you take it up? If you know it's godly and you don't know that you need to take it up because, for example, no one else is taking it up, and therefore there's a requirement that somebody does. That's why I took up this project, and wow, is all I can say. And if it's an area that lots of people do anyway, let's say you're called to be a teacher, to preach like a pastor, but preach on particular teachings, going into the Greek and explaining things well and giving revelation that people aren't grabbing these days, not because they don't want to grab them, but because many people don't know how to teach them. But God's giving you the words to express to people. So you're a teacher, you know you're a teacher, you have it in your heart to teach, you do it really well. God puts everything together. Yet an opportunity comes along for you to be a pastor. And when I say pastor, I don't mean a pastor that gets up and preaches, like I mentioned before, but one in a real pastoral role. Your duty is to then, rather than preach on a Sunday, let's say you're in a church that has half a dozen pastors and there's a senior pastor and there's different pastors that preach at different times, and you would be somebody that might get to preach every few months, but your job would primarily be to care for people, to counsel people, to help them discover their call and do the pastoral type things rather than the teaching thing. Would that be of God? Well, that's something that anyone with a pastoral heart should be doing. And are lots of people in that area. So it's not as if you're the only person that can help people in counseling and the like. So I think that's not an area where it's godly to be sidetracked. However, if it's an area that no one's doing it, again, you're the teacher, and let's say God has given you a vision. Now, I don't mean prophetic vision as in you saw the future, but given you a direction to go. And it was unique, something that no one has done. Like, for example, it's hard to think of things that no one's done. I'll come up with one. I'll just fast forward this until I come up with one. Okay, here's just something quick and ridiculous in a sense. You feel called to join NASA and be the first person to preach from outer space by going up to the space station and preaching from there. And NASA says, yeah, we're going to let you do that. Well, that would be something that it's not as if there's thousands of pastors out there that have that on their heart, or teachers out there that have that on their heart. It's relatively unique. So, being an astronaut's not part of your call, but you would have to be trained to be an astronaut and step out of your call to do something that will relate to your call a little bit because you, while doing this, taking years to train and to go and to do it all, you get an opportunity to talk about God from space for half an hour, years to supply something for half an hour. You're stepping out of your call for years to do something that's a little bit godly. Well, you could give the same message on a Christian TV channel and it reaches many people straight away. But if God put it in your heart to be an astronaut and there was something godly in it, it's a different thing. Maybe it's from God. You'd have to pray on it a lot. You'd have to really seek God's heart. And ideally, if you know people that work in prophetic ways, talk with them. So we can be taken out of our call temporarily to achieve godly things. I know that. I believe there's references in the Bible for similar things as well. On the other hand, some of the time we go and do things that we're not called to do, that are wonderful, godly things, but it's not our calling. And instead we go, oh, I like that. I like doing that. So that must be what God calls me to do because I like it. Just because you like it doesn't mean it's what God has called you to do. Just because it might have some value doesn't mean it's what God has called you to do. What about God blessing it? Is it a matter of everything just falls in place? Those jigsaw pieces, just drop them and bang, they become a jigsaw all by themselves, all except for this little piece that's missing. And you don't even know that piece is missing. And you're going, wow, God, it's ready. And just as you go, okay, I'm going to present it. Somebody says, hang on, I just found this jigsaw piece and I was wondering, do you do jigsaws? And it's like, yeah, I'm doing one right now. In fact, oh, hang on, there's a missing piece. Oh, you've got the exact piece. Wow. I don't know if you can follow along with the explanation that I'm giving or how it seems to work. And it seems to work that way. If it's God, everything just drops in place. Everything just works. Now, it doesn't mean everything will be perfect because if it's God and if it is what you're called to, A, it's on your heart. B, those pieces just fall into place. C, any time a piece hasn't fallen into place, somebody supplies it, yet, as far as your time goes, you might get distracted by demonic things. You can face issues in a godly event due to what the enemy is trying to do. Yet, when you're in it, when you're doing it, everything will fall into place. Okay, so there's a difference here. If you're not doing it because something has distracted you, yet whenever you're doing it, things just fall into place. That's what the resources needed just come along, etc. Then I think that probably is your call, and you probably should be doing it because everything is supplied for it. Yet the enemy's trying to distract you. The enemy can't stop that supply from happening. So some of the time, it's the supply itself that shows whether what you're doing is godly or not. Maybe. If, on the other hand, it's really difficult to get all those jigsaw pieces into place all the time, it's just not working. The enemy doesn't need to do anything. God's not making it easy for you because it's you trying to do it in your strength. Just imagine these jigsaw pieces as being 1,000 kilo each or 500 pounds each. And when God's in it, it's just move them along and put them in place. Not a problem. You've got the strength to do it. When God's not in it, you can't even budge them slightly. As long as you're working on that particular ministry, that call. The devil will try to distract you and get you away from the call. But when in the call, can the devil make it ineffective? I believe not. I believe if it's ineffective when you're in it, then chances are you're probably not meant to be in it. Some people just look at pastors and go, wow, that person gets to be in control of a church, have all this authority, and be a wonderful person. Everybody admires them. I want to be in power and admired. I want to be. Here's a person full of pride. They shouldn't be a pastor. Oh, I want to be a pastor, so I'm called to be a pastor. I'm going to go out and start a church and Years later, they've got a church of three or four people because it's been really hard for them to constantly go out all week long trying to get people to come to their church. There's no blessing behind it. Oh, the devil's attacking me because I'm not getting this opportunity to stand up before thousands of people and be the wonderful, glorified person I am. Again, that is a person in sin seeking to be glorified themselves out of pride. Sure, pastors have a role, especially teachers have a role that they do lead and they are seen, but pride is a massive issue in God. So if it's from pride or from desire or from the want to be something special, important, it's not God at all. I can tell you that straight away. Okay. 1 Peter 5:5. In fact, James 4:6 says something very similar. Both verses finish with James 4:6. God opposes the arrogant but gives grace to the humble. And 1 Peter 5:5 says, finishes in, God opposes the arrogant but gives grace to the humble. And arrogant is prideful, people that, oh, I'm whatever. I'm important. I'm needed. Even if I'm not important, I'm really required in this role or the like. So the takeaway, though, is if God's in it, when you're in it, it just comes together by itself. When you're out of it, evil forces will try to keep you out of it. And if it's not God, when you're in it, when you're trying to do it, nothing works right. So this isn't really much on knowing how to find your call. But I guess what I've been talking about is if you believe you found your call, what is the confirmation? It comes together when you're in it. What is an indication that maybe it's not your call? Well, when you're in it, when you're trying to do it, it's not coming together. So when you're outside of that call, when you're just doing regular work or whatever it might be, distractions come to try and stop you from doing it. But when you're in it and when you're doing it, God will bless it by bringing the resources, etc., along. Okay, I don't know if that's been useful for people, but that's what was on my heart due to what's happened. I too need to make a decision on call right now, whether I should take up the second project and somehow work it in alongside with what I'm regularly called to. Okay, as always, the details are below. Contact us. Let us know where you're at in God and we can help you go further. Bless you. Govern well. Carers to you.